Hey Summerside, my name is Sarah Davis, and my husband and I have been attending our church for about 20 years now, and we love you guys. We love our church. My faith journey started when I was really young. I grew up in a Christian home. We went to church 3 times a week, twice on Sunday and one other time for prayer meeting during the week. And I received Christ as my Savior when I was probably about 4. I don't remember a lot of details about that. But as a young child, I didn't have a lot of Christian friends. I had my siblings. And that didn't really impact me too much until I got to high school. And in high school, I didn't have a lot of Christian friends, and I started to make some not great choices, trying to fit in, trying to act and do the things that I felt like my friends would accept and like me for, I guess. I didn't feel like I was a good Christian because of those choices I was making, because of that sin. And so at church, I pretended to be a good Christian. I knew how to do that well. And then when I was at school or with my friends, I was pretending then too, because I was just trying to make decisions and choices based on what I thought they would like me for. So I didn't really know who I was at all. I was pretending at church, I was pretending at school, and always trying to make choices just to look a certain way. In university, in first year university, a good friend of mine was killed in a car accident after leaving my dorm room. And because of the circumstances surrounding his death, I felt really responsible. And so that just led me to a really dark place of guilt and grief and just not knowing who I was or where I was heading. And so I knew, because of my relationship with Jesus and because of my growing up in a Christian home, I knew that if I prayed and I asked God for peace, that His promise was that He would give me that supernatural peace. And so I prayed. I cried out to God. I asked Him for that peace, and He gave it to me. He took away my guilt, and He just met me where I was. And I realized through all of this, He'd been walking with me the whole time. So I felt like that was, I feel like that's when I really surrendered my life to Christ, when I really needed Jesus, or realized I needed Jesus. I met JM, my husband, in second year university, and I knew that it was perfect timing, God's perfect timing, because that was at a time where I had now surrendered my life to Christ and was ready to walk with Him. And so I guess that's my faith journey. I still struggle with not feeling good enough as a parent. Failure is a daily struggle for me, but I don't feel like I need to hide it anymore. In fact, I understand grace, and I understand that in fact I am a failure, and that's why Jesus died. So I could claim His righteousness, His perfection, His good enough, and I can't be that on my own. I can't wait to see everyone again, and hope to see more of you and learn more about you through your testimonies.
Hi Summerside, I'm Brenda McMillan, and I've been attending Summerside for just over a year now. I grew up attending church every Sunday, and when I was 14, I went to snow camp with my youth group. And during that time, I had a very real moment with the Lord where He revealed to me who He was. And when I left snow camp, I knew that I had to choose between following the Lord or following the world. And I remember telling the Lord, I'm not ready for you. So during my teen years and into my 20s, I partied a lot. And during this time, I also started experiencing major depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. My mental health issues followed me into my 30s, and during this time, I tried everything for relief. When I was in my mid-30s, I came across a blog where people were talking about their depression and anxiety, and they were sharing ways of coping and how to get relief from these things. And on this blog, I read a post from a guy who said that his depression had gotten so much better when he became a Christian. I was a bit taken back by this comment because it somehow resonated with me. But I put the comment to the back of my mind and I carried on with life. A few years passed and I was still thinking about that post. I became curious about God and whether he was actually real or not. And by this time, I had actually completely forgotten about my experience at snow camp all those years ago. So I decided I would start praying every day. After several days of praying, I came under strong conviction and started feeling immense guilt and shame over every wrong thing that I had done. And I literally cried for like a week. But at this point, I still had a chip on my shoulder about churches and organized religion. So I decided I would be a stay-at-home Christian and just watch sermons on YouTube. And for a while, everything was great. What I didn't realize was that I started watching false teachings and I started ignoring some of my convictions out of confusion. My depression and anxiety started getting much, much worse, and it was worse than I had ever experienced in my life. Plus, I started experiencing symptoms of psychosis. I knew that this was something that I couldn't fight on my own, and I knew that I needed other believers to pray for me. I started going to a church and found a few people to pray for me, and they told me that they were praying for me every day. It took a while, but over the span of many months, I started to experience deliverance. And after a year, I was completely healed of my depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. And I was filled with a sense of peace and joy, and I've been free ever since. And that is the story of how Jesus healed me.